The September 24th, 2019 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello? Here. Mr. Baroth? Here. Chairman Delahaney?
Here.
Mrs. Draw is excused. Mr. Felder? Here. Ms. Cayley? Here. Mr. Mafucci? Here. Mr. Marinetti? Here. Mr. Morelli? Here. Mr. Rocco? Here. Ms. Taylor? Here. President Carbone?
Okay. Will Legislator Baroth please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum?
There are not.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee at this time? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the August 27th, 2019 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business.
Referral 19-0230.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Chair. Through you to the administration, or maybe perhaps to the chair, am I correct to recall that this is in fact the referral that had the substitution? Yes. Thank you, David. So through the chair to the administration, what was the actual nature of the change in the substitution?
Mr. Chairman, the change would appear in specific legislative action number 2. It originally said amend bond reso 324 of 2018 to increase financing. We're not actually increasing the financing, so this needed to change to say amend bond reso 324 of 2018 to increase the project authorization. That's really the only change in the bond reso is the overall authorization.
Thank you very much. I was searching for what I could not find. I just want to make sure I knew what it was. So through the chair to the administration, one other question. Of the $75,000 being transferred from the operation budget, what was the original purpose of $75,000? What was it going to do in the operation budget that it's no longer going to do?
Through the chair, actually what had happened is we started the CAD project, computer-aided dispatch at 911, and at the time we submitted our budget, which would have been last year in June, July timeframe, the project hadn't even started, so we budgeted fully for the maintenance agreement for the old CAD project, and the project manager is saying he should be able to negotiate a reduced rate contract because we should be it's targeted to go live with the new CAD in December of this year.
So through the chair of the administration, then we expect to save money on a contract for the CAD at 911, but that hasn't actually occurred yet. Is that correct through the chair?
Through the chair, the actual maintenance comes due in December, so we may have to pay 3 to 6 month kind of thing just to kind of keep both systems going. But we wouldn't have to pay the full year, the full amount. It's a yearly billing that happens in December, so the actual payment or anything like that hasn't occurred.
So the expectation then is that the $75,000 is simply savings from the CAD maintenance costs through the chair?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, and when do we know about that through the chair?
Through the chair, the 911 program manager is in negotiations now with the old vendor as far as how much we will pay them and for, the time frame that we will need, because the new CAD is not live yet, but is anticipated to be by the end of the year.
Okay, so from my understanding then is that at some point in time, the manager or the person in charge of those negotiations was aware of the fact that there could be savings to be found here. Through the chair. Through
the chair, that's correct. Before we did this resolution, I checked with him. We, had discussions and meetings about if we could use that money, and he was okay with it. Yes.
Okay.
Legislator Kaley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. On the maintenance contract you have, if I heard correctly, we have two separate vendors. One is the old vendor and one is the new vendor. Thank you. That's what I thought. And then through the chair, of the old vendor, are they aware that the new system is going live in 2020?
Through the chair, yes, because we've issued RFPs, we've awarded, we've been working with them to convert data.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Then, thank you. And then through the chair, was there a time frame, or what I would have called in the industry a cancellation window, that was in the old contract? Through the chair, I think I said it already, or not? Or is the county able to cancel at any time?
Through the chair, it's an annual up every December. So it's
Thank you. But normally when the contract comes up okay, through the chair, then you're going to know by December when you're going to go live.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay.
And like I said, prior to that, the 911 program manager is starting negotiations with the old vendor to say that we may only need, 6 months of maintenance to make sure as we're going live that everything's, okay, we don't have to revert back, so.
Okay, thank you. So, and then through the chair, if I could, because I was listening to this in public safety, of the flatbed that was beyond repair at this time, and obviously it needed to be replaced. You did mention that originally the county had anticipated being able to move the crane, thank you, such a big word. The crane, you had anticipated being able to move that, which would have counted for some savings. Through the chair, is this anticipated in the new vehicle? That you would have a movable crane?
Through the chair, there will be a new crane in the new vehicle.
Right, but thank you. If I could explain it a little bit farther, the understanding was with the old flatbed that you would be able to transfer the crane to a new vehicle, and what I'm asking is on the new vehicle, is this going to be the case, or are we just going to get a flatbed with a non-removable crane? That's all.
Through the chair, it is anticipated that we can. I think part of it depends on when we replace it, the age of when we replace it. This is so old that's
so old that it's rusted on. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0231.
Moved by Legislator Rocca, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, is this a project that is currently under construction?
Through the chair, this is a new request for additional work.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, when will this work begin?
Through the chair, after all approvals are received, we'd like to commence in October.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0232.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, seconded by Legislator Marionetti. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0233.
Moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, the referral states that the conversion to the new AMR resulted in delays in a backlog. Why is this the case, that it caused delays in backlog? Through the chair.
Through the chair, several issues. Anytime you go through any sort of a conversion, moving to a new platform, you're going to have delays. In addition, my billing manager was out on FMLA for nearly 10 months. And in addition, we also had staffing turnover, which increased those delays. The previous system that the hospital was on used a third-party clearinghouse to accelerate the claim submission. We are currently working on obtaining a clearinghouse to expedite our claims currently.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, what is the current age backlog for MCC?
Through the chair, through the chair, this referral is looking at any of the receivables that are in excess of 180 days. So during this implementation of the new EMR and staffing turnover, we've seen a bit of a deterioration in the receivables, which means we've seen some additional claims age out, and this would be the focus of Fried Maxick coming in to analyze the receivables and then work towards submitting one-time appeals with the various payers.
Thank you. But my question was, what is the current backlog? So I guess what I mean by that is, what's the current level of receivables that's over 180 days in arrears through the chair?
Through the chair, the accumulation of receivables in excess of 180 days is approximately $3.9 million.
Damn. Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, is that level of backlog higher than the historical norm of what's in 180 days aged out? And if it's not, how far afield is it from what's normally 180 days old or older through the chair?
Through the chair, this amount is typically higher than we would normally have experienced. However, with these claims outstanding, the hospital is already reserved for these claims as being uncollectible. So anything that Fried Maxick is able to bring to the table would increase our hospital's cash flow and actually increase the bottom line of the facility.
So the hospital has indicated through the chair that this $3.9 million is uncollectible, essentially? Is that what you said through the chair?
Through the chair, not uncollectible. We've determined that it might not be collectible, so we've reserved at 100%. So what we're going to do is be working with Fried Maxick and allowing them to, again, review our receivables and work towards obtaining paid claims on those older receivables.
Okay. Through the chair of the administration, why are we not capable of doing this work ourselves through the chair? Or at least hiring on additional staff, even on a temporary basis, to do this through the chair?
Through the chair, Fried Maxick, who was selected through an RFP process, has expertise in the area of one-time appeals. My current staff is really focused on getting the current bills out the door, processed and paid, and they can follow up in the 30 to 60-day buckets. But Fried Maxick has had success with other nursing facilities within New York State.
And through the chair of the administration, what would the timeline be for Fried Maxick to do this work?
Through the chair, depending on final approval on this referral, By providing Freed Maxic our payer contracts, they'd be working both on-site and off-site. I'm anticipating that the first stage would probably be a 3-month review and then be working for the next 9 months on actually submitting one-time appeals to the various insurance payers.
Okay. And through the chair of the administration, and after that 12-month process, and there's uncollected billing out there, I'm sure there'll be some, what happens to those cases at that point? Freed Maxic's done their work, the bills are still there. What happens with those bills, through the chair?
Through the chair, as I mentioned, those have been reserved at 100%, so the hospital has already incurred an expense. So those outstanding claims essentially would be written off.
3.9 million. And through the chair of the administration, do we have an estimate, or did Freed Maxic provide an estimate of what they anticipate they could reasonably get back from these from the insurance companies on these claims? Through the chair.
Through the chair, not until Freed Maxic actually gets in and starts to do a detailed review of our claims, but they, based on similar project, estimated possibly 1/3 of the outstanding claims.
Okay. So through the chair of the administration, their contract calls upon them to get paid $120,000 no matter how much they recover, or is there a minimum they have to recover? Through the chair.
Through the chair, it is not a contingency referral. It's based on their estimated hours not to exceed.
So they get paid up to, maybe less, but up to $120,000 no matter how they perform, correct? Through the chair?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. So if we have $3.9 million in aged claims at 180, how many age claims do we have at 90 days plus that will, by the time we have this contract in place, might be at 180 through the chair?
Through the chair, that's a constantly moving target, but with the hospital's billing department being fully staffed, we're not seeing as many claims age out, because I think we're in a better place with my billing manager back on staff, fully staffed. We're able to get the current claims out the door and also monitor anything that might be drifting out to 60 or 90 days.
So through the chair of the administration, we don't anticipate over the next, say, 3 or 4 months that this estimate of $3.9 million is going to go up significantly?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Okay. Then you did say earlier this is outside the basic normal level, 180 days of age claims. What has typically been that reasonable age claim status of 180 days through the chair?
Through the chair, that would be difficult to obtain that information since we did convert to a new system. At this point, I don't think I can give you what our standard aged groupings would be in each one of the aging categories.
Through the chair of the administration, is that something that you could develop or figure out? Or are you indicating that's an impossibility?
It would be very difficult to go back into the system and run retroactive reports. And again, through the chair, I've been in my position 18 months. Had I been in my position for an extended period of time, that data would be readily available.
That's fair. So through the chair of the administration, the reason I'm asking is I want to get a ballpark on what's reasonable. So $3.9 million, I think we all agree, is unreasonable, hence we're hiring someone to take care of that problem. So what's reasonable to have in 180? Is it like $1 million, a couple million, less? Any thoughts on that through the chair?
Well, you know, I think what we're going through right now and what we're addressing, the administration is telling us, is that they're looking to, they've identified the problem and looking to find a solution. And I think that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And I think that, you know, the legislator brings up, you know, a good point. This area is very complicated. I'm not an expert in this area of insurance billing and what we have out there, so I definitely think this is something that we can work with the administration and get back to the legislator and provide more comprehensive answer as to what you're looking for.
Then I would suggest through the chair, is that acceptable to the administration that we'll get a report on this in the near future?
Through the chair, as you know, Monroe Community Hospital payer mix represents probably about 80% Medicaid. And with the changes in Medicaid over the past several years, many of those with the MLTCs, Fidelis, iCircle, various other Medicaid programs, the bill submission process has become that much more difficult, similar to private pay. So we've seen more denials. Based on the overall assessment, I think we're fully staffed, but we're just seeing more difficulty with the MLTCs and the other insurance payers following the Medicaid.
So through the chair of the administration, did you agree with the chair's suggestion that you provide some sort of report on this in the near future?
Through the chair, what kind of report would you be looking for?
Some explanation of how $3.9 million is excessively more than what was otherwise acceptable. We're in a position here that due to what the administration described as a staff member being out for 10 months, as well as staff turnover, we got to a place where we are owed $3.9 million, and we anticipate, well, we have an estimate that we might get 33% of it back, and I'd rather we were never in this position, that we might get 33% back of what's nearly $4 million. I'd rather we had all of that. Now, I know we don't ever get everything, but clearly, due to this turnover, due to the EMR shift, we lost out on, you know, revenue that we should have had, at least MCH should have had. And so I'd like to understand how we got here, or at least what was the extent of the problem. I don't think this is unreasonable. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, as we sit here at the admin table discussing the legislator's question, we are all in agreement that this is a frustrating situation and it is a financial position the hospital should never have gotten into. Unfortunately, timing is everything. At the time Monroe Community Hospital's senior financial administrator positions were turning over, both the hospital finance administrator and the assistant hospital finance administrator. The hospital was also replacing its antiquated system with a new electronic medical record system, whereby the former antiquated system, which used a third-party billing clearinghouse to electronically submit claims, was now being shifted entirely over to the new EMR system. It was not a great setup. The timing of the staffing changes, I think, impaired the hospital's ability because it was probably a 12-month software implementation. So it is unfortunate, Mr. Chairman, that we are in this position. I will agree with the legislator. We are not happy. None of us at this table are happy, but we need to plow a path forward, and through extensive discussions, both internally and with the proposal submissions, we really think this is the best path forward, and we are working towards ensuring that the hospital does not in the future ever find itself in this position again. I know the legislator is very interested in what is the historical trends, which makes it very difficult that we have old software system. The former EMR was proprietary software. It's very difficult to extract data, and I believe it would be more than a 2-week endeavor, because I know when the legislature asks questions at committees, the legislators really expect an answer by the full legislative vote. That's only 2 weeks, and Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I just don't think this type of endeavor can be completed in 2 weeks. That is a lot of research to do in an old system when we are trying to keep current on today's patient billings.
So I understand what the administration is saying, and I will agree that it's not necessarily possible to get everything we might want in 2 weeks' time. But if the administration could provide a reasonable written summary of how we got here, even if it doesn't provide additional information about the historical trends of what we've owed or been owed in the past, that would be very much appreciated, because as I think the chair would agree, this is complicated, and how we got here is complicated. I think the full ledge has a need to know how we got here, because at the end of the day, if you talk about getting 33% of this $3.9 million back, that means we're losing, or the hospital is losing $2.5 million, and that's got to have an impact. And I'm glad the administration is talking about having procedures or process or something in place so that we don't get here again. But I'm pretty disappointed in the hospital that we got here in the first place, because if you have people out for extended periods of time while making changes, I would hope that the leadership would spot those challenges before we get here, and that did not happen. Now I'll start my little diatribe, but if the administration agrees to give some sort of summary, I'd be most appreciative of that.
Mr. Chairman, we will endeavor to produce such a report. We appreciate the extended amount of time to complete such an endeavor, and we are also happy to provide the legislature with periodic status updates on how our contractor, Freed Maxic, is progressing.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Morelli.
Chairman, through you to the administration, when was the last time that the Monroe Community Hospital Board met?
Mr. Chairman, can we please request verification? Is the legislator asking about the governing body over MCH or the advisory board of MCH?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know when both last met.
Through the chair, the advisory board has struggled to get a quorum, so I don't believe they've met since towards the end of 2018. And the governing body meets monthly.
Thank Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chairman, as the governing body, as the advisory board hasn't met, has the governing body been made aware of this $3.9 million potential loss of revenue?
Through the chair, yes, they have been made aware, and they were fully supportive of moving forward with this RFP.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, who is on the, who are the members of the governing body?
Through the chair, the governing body is the county executive.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is it correct then that the governing body is the county executive by herself? Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is just another sad day for Monroe Community Hospital. We continue to see issues at Monroe Community Hospital going back many years, and the fact that the advisory board hasn't met, but the county executive meets by herself as the governing body is pretty sad. This is just another failure when it comes to the oversight of Monroe Community Hospital.
Okay. Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, I just, obviously we've gone over this quite a bit, but I just wanted to understand that the time frame that we're talking about with the uncollected, in other words, the oldest receivables that have not been fulfilled through the 180 days. And let me rephrase that. I would be happy to just have an inkling in a written statement about how old the oldest receivables that this company is going to be responsible for, all right? I'm not asking for it off the top of your head, but if that could come back, I would appreciate that. That's it.
Okay.
Through the chair, we can meet that request through a written requirement, please.
Through the chair, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, through the chair, I don't expect that you have the exact dates of how far this company is going to be going back, but it's going to start at past older than 180, am I correct?
Through the chair, Fried Maxick would be looking at all claims 180 days and older.
Thank you. And then through the chair, what I'm looking for is an approximation or an exact date of what the oldest claims that Fried Max will be looking at up to older than 180 days. And I can have that in writing if you don't have it in front of you.
Through the chair, we can provide that information.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'd like to clarify one thing that was said earlier. The governing board does not meet as one person by herself. She meets with the staff of MCH to go over these issues, which includes the executive director, and I believe it's the director of nursing and, I'm sorry, the medical director, the HR director, and finance, of course. So it is not a one-person meeting.
If the governing board is the county executive with other members, who ultimately has the authority to sign off on these items?
The governing body is the county executive. She meets with the people that were just outlined, but ultimately the responsibility is on the county executive pursuant to the county charter.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chairman, then I am correct in saying that the county executive alone has the final decision.
Right. With the, through the chair, with the concurrence of legislature, where she would need to come to the legislature for approval.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that? I didn't hear that.
There are obvious places where she would have to come to the legislature for approval, but other than that, she is the sole governing body by county charter.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Bra.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, it was mentioned earlier that we're going to, the administration is going to explore ways to make sure this does not happen again. Is one of those ways to make sure this doesn't happen again is to ensure the advisory body meets on a much more regular basis through the chair? Or has that not been considered?
Yes, through the chair.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, it was mentioned that there's a difficulty with establishing quorum on the advisory body. How will we ensure that quorum can be achieved through the chair?
The new executive director has been tasked with getting his schedule going, and there have been new members appointed to the advisory board, and the new executive director will get everything back on track.
Through the chair, through the chair of the administration, do we have a time frame for that? When things will be back on track? I mean, when is the next advisory board meeting, for example?
The next scheduled advisory board meeting is in November, but there is anticipation there's going to be a special meeting before that.
Through the chair.
Through the chair.
Yeah. So through the chair of the administration, if the board doesn't meet on a regular basis, does the board receive any information from the MCH on a regular basis? A monthly report, a quarterly report, anything like that when they're not meeting? Through the chair.
Chair, we'll have to get back to you on what how the new executive director deals with informing the board.
Okay, do you think that, through the chair, do you think that we'll know this before the full ledger meeting?
The chair, that's a doable request.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration. Obviously, this is a lot to take in, but I would just ask this question. For the $120,000, how much do we think we're going to get back? Any estimate? Well, we just don't know.
Through the chair, Fried Maxick, based on their prior experience with other entities, estimates it at 1/3.
Thank you. Yeah, just confirming through the chair.
Legislator Felder.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So then that means that the Monroe County taxpayers are going to be losing out on about $2.5 million. But only recovering about 1/3 of what
I'm sorry, Legislator Felder, can you restate that as a
that
question?
means that the taxpayers of Monroe County are going to be losing about $2.5 million based on only 1/3 of.
Right.
It's an estimate.
Right.
But I was told the estimate was the high water mark. That was the high water mark was 33%.
Okay.
It may be less.
Okay, so here's where we're at. We've identified the topic, the discussion. the administration has been we're looking at a step for solution. We've talked about it. There's more additional information is going to be given, a summary of where we're at and what's happening. So I think that's where we're at right now. And what we're going to be voting on is to be moving forward to have this vendor go in and assist MCH with collecting as much of this debt as possible. And a lot of other questions have been asked and answered, and there's more information that will be forthcoming. So we certainly can have debates over the merits of where we're at, but I think in terms of what we're discussing right now, we have gone over it in detail.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, though, I think what my colleague was asking, though, is that if the 1/3 of the 3.9 million is collected, it is then the assumption that 2.5 million will be paid for essentially at the cost of taxpayers. Is that fair to say?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate some previous comments about how complicated this is. It is complicated. I will say to the legislature and to this committee specifically that the allowance for doubtful accounts have already been adjusted for in the 2017 and the 2018 financial statements for the hospital. So if indeed it turns out that Friedmatic is only able to recover up to 1/3 of the current estimate, the remaining 2/3, the remaining, can I just call it a 2/3 loss on those receivables, has already been accounted for in the prior 2 years' financial statements. So it won't be a hit in this year or in 2020.
But through you, Mr. Chairman, that amount, the loss, right, is still, there was still a cost incurred by the hospital, which is ultimately receives its funding from the county taxpayers. So it is then, through you, Mr. Chairman, fair to say that this miss cost the county taxpayers $2.5 million.
I don't want to cloud the issue, Mr. Chairman, because while the financial effects have already been accounted for in prior year financial statements, it is a dollar bill we're talking about. So I'm not trying to cloud the issue too much. I know there's some consternation about the $120,000 ceiling on this contract. I would like to point out it is against current Medicaid regulations for a vendor to bill on a percentage fee basis, which could be employed in other contracts with other programs, just not the Medicaid program.
Okay.
Simply just not allowed.
But through you, Mr. Chairman, again, to my original question, it is the whether we put the dollar figures in the 2017 budget, the 2020 budget, there is still a cost that has been incurred by the hospital that ultimately they will not recover. Correct, through the chair.
That is possible, Mr. Chairman.
But okay, possible that, but this $3.9 million has already been, that cost is already incurred. Is that correct?
It has already been incurred, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. President Carbone.
Through the chairman to the administration, if a bill is over 180 days, that doesn't mean it's uncollectible, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
I believe on insurance claims, it's up to a year that you, through the chair, it's up to a year that you can resubmit the claims?
Through the chair, that depends on the insurance.
So through the chair, it's conceivable that if they go after the outstanding bills at over 180 days, it could be a lot more than 1/3 that's collected of the money outstanding?
Through the chair, could you repeat the question, please?
If you go, through the chair, if you can try to reclaim the outstanding bills that are over 180 days, it's possible that the Monroe Community Hospital could reclaim a lot more than 1/3 of the outstanding debt?
Through the chair, yes, that is possible. And as I said previously, Fried Maxick has had success with one-time appeals with its other clients, nursing homes within New York State, on receiving funding from those one-time appeals.
Thank you.
Legislator Brough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, is it fair to say that while it's possible it's to get more than 33%, the experts in the field who are hiring for their expertise have indicated, in fact, that it's not likely to go above 33% in terms of what they're going to get back. Is that correct?
Through the chair, again, based on prior experience, we don't know if that was a conservative estimate or their best guess. Not until they get in and actually look at all the claims and do a deep dive are they really going to be able to tell us. And again, as part of the referral, that's the first step of this process. It's a two-stage step. First, they analyze the receivables. Then they can determine what they can and cannot submit one-time appeals on.
Thank you. So if I wish to be conservative about this and not risk or assume funding that we're not going to get otherwise, we should go with the experts who indicate, hey, 33% is a good bet. Going past that would be very foolish. So I think it's really fair to say that we're not going to get much more than 33% back on this $3.9 million, assuming they do the good work that they promised to do. This is not, I realize everything's possible, but no, I'm making a
point of order.
You brought it up.
Okay, I think we're at a point now where we've discussed the issue. We all know, Legislator Brough, as you know, you've asked some excellent questions. Mr. Franklin will work with you. We'll work with you to get the information or any additional information that you're looking at. So I think right now where we're at is that we're looking to take a vote on this. And we've discussed all the reasons why we're going to be doing, why we're going to be voting on this. But certainly, I understand your frustration, and the administration has expressed their frustration as well. But I think at this time, we need to move forward and take a vote on this.
Yeah, I do. I have another question on this matter, actually. It has not been asked and answered. It was mentioned by the administration that the company, Fried Maxick, was the best respondent, most qualified to provide this service. And so I'm going to assume that they are indeed the best and we can trust what they have to say. But did anyone local respond to this RFP as well? From Monroe County's local, through the chair?
Through the chair, yes, they did.
Were any of them considered qualified, not necessarily most qualified, but qualified through the chair?
Through the chair, there was one local vendor that responded to the RFP process.
That was considered qualified through the chair?
Through the chair, yes.
Who was that? Through the chair?
Through the chair, Beacon Solutions Group.
Through the chair, Fried Maxick has a local office.
Oh, they do?
Yes. Through the chair, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Through the chair, the referral talks about it being from Buffalo, so I just assumed that.
Through the chair, that's the main office.
But they have a local office?
Through the chair, yes.
Right. Okay. Oh, Brighton even better. So finally, through the chair of the administration, am I correct to assume then that the work being done by Fried Maxick will involve the personnel probably mostly at the local office? Or is that unreasonable to assume through the chair?
Chair, we can't guarantee that. We're using the firm as an entire firm. It would seem logical that that would be the choice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0234.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by President Carbone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0235.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through your administration, I was a bit confused by a statement in here that, and I'll just quote it. They want to advance the update of the current master plan, quote, because of inmate population decreases since 2013. So my question is, through the chair, is how is it that a decrease in the prison population makes moving this project forward more desirable? What's the connection, I guess?
Through the chair, the master plan was done in 2013, 14, and 15. The population in those years was much higher than it is right now. We don't want to base a plan on a capital improvement project to change the mainframe or update the mainframe on old data. So with new reforms and changes, what we're looking to do is find out what we would need now instead of what we needed in the past. I hope that makes sense.
That does make sense. That's a very logical way of approaching it. Okay, I just wanted to be clear in my own mind why that was the case. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0236.
Moved by Legislator Rockow, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barra.
Chair. Through you to the administration, the question was asked by one of my colleagues, why the increase of $250,000? And the answer we given was that that we were short in the fiscal years earlier by, I'm guesstimating, $40,000 or so. And that you also incorporated an inflation rate increase of 3%. But by my calculations, that only accounts for about $100,000 to $150,000 of this increase of $250,000. So my question again is, could you have some more detail about why are we increasing this by $250,000 through the chair?
Through the chair, with the 3% inflation factor, essentially 3% on $2.4 million is $72,000. Again, the overrun for the fiscal year ending 3/31/19 was $40,000. And I believe with a one-year renewal, I think what we did is we asked for some additional funding to make sure that we did not exceed what was requested for this referral. We are going through various opportunities within the hospital in terms of pay structure and looking at trying to hire more CNAs and LPNs so that we can see a reduction in our agency usage.
So in fact, you've just identified through the chair that about $110,000 or so is, the 3% and the short runs, but the rest, in fact, is for just to hire additional staff. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, I think what we asked in the referral was to make sure we have a little bit more cushion so that we wouldn't be back here next year potentially asking for additional funding. As I said, our goal is to reduce our agency expense and invest our assets into our employees. HR is working very closely in looking at how to structure pay grades for CNAs and LPNs so that, again, we can reduce our agency usage moving forward.
So we're increasing our cushion with these companies that provide the services, correct, by about $140,000. Correct? Through the chair?
Through the chair, that would actually be our encumbrance. We might not necessarily be spending that money.
Well, okay, encumbrance cushion, okay. I realize you may not necessarily spend the money, but I'm not going to say it's been my experience that generally the funds get spent, but they tend to get spent. Okay, I have to think about this one. So for now, I'll provisionally vote for it, but there's something a little funky about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Legislator Cayley.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, through you to the administration. First of all, I'm going to say it is, in my last few months here, it is very heartening to hear that we're working towards more retention and recognition of the importance of full-time employees rather than contract employees. That's not to say that contract employees don't serve their purpose and they can be excellent in their jobs, but it's been my experience on this committee and then on Ways and Means, on Human Services and then Ways and Means, to hear about the uptick in the use of agencies where staff has been laid off, and then the response has been, well, if they get laid off, they can go to work for the temporary agencies, which is never a good choice. So I applaud this track, and I hope to hear that it's successful. What I wanted to know through you in more of a question, and I can take this in writing at a later date, is what is our ratio at this point of full-time nursing staff to contract nursing staff, and the level at which you hope to attain after this point going forward, what you would like that ratio to be, and where you feel comfortable where that is to make incremental changes upwards. And as I said, I can take that in writing, and an estimate is an estimate. It's what the hospital's goals are that I'm interested in, not so much that it's attained immediately. But again, if I could get that in writing, an idea, an estimate, I will not hold you to that estimate because things change. But it's always disheartening when you drive past the hospital to see nursing positions available, nursing positions available. It's a necessary thing that we have to ask for nurses to be there. But I would like it to be more of a place that they want to be there, that we're competitive enough to keep full-time staff, because I do think that that's the crux of good service and good health care. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other items to come before this committee? There being no other matters, the September 24th, 2019 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be held on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019 at 6 p.m.